On the day of marriage ceremony, my husband was sent to war where he died on the battlefield. To maintain our family's honor, I was given away to Xiao Zhan Tian, the Regent King, who wielded enormous power. For 3 years, he has trained me to become his most favored concubine, showing me excessive love, and in time, I began to feel affection for him. But he abandoned me when I became pregnant. I detest being manipulated the most, Dan Yue. I thought you were different. It turns out you're just as cunning as those other women. How does it matter if you painstakingly carried my child? I will still punish you. Remember, don't take my love for granted. I was sent back to my first husband's family. My mother-in-law even wanted to abort the baby in my womb. Just as I was about to give up on life, Xiao Zhan Tian remembered me and sent someone to bring me back. He said he recognized his feelings, to take me as his official wife and start anew. As I caressed my empty belly, bruised all over, I asked, "My lord, can I, a wilted and battered woman, still be your wife?" Upon finding out that I was bullied by the lowest servants in the Lin residence, his eyes filled with fury. He cried and begged for my forgiveness. Around half a year after I was returned to the Lin residence, Regent King Xiao Zhan Tian personally came to pick me up. Considering she has realized her mistakes during her time back at the Lin residence, and seeing that she is soon due for delivery, let's bring her back. There is simply no reason for my woman and bloodline to be left stranded. These were Xiao Zhan Tian's exact words. When his envoy arrived to fetch me, I was tightly surrounded by the staff at the Lin's mansion. In front of everyone, the old lady stripped me of my clothes, allowing the dagger-like gazes to torment me inch by inch. I was too embarrassed and frustrated, desperately attempting to cover myself. However, being pregnant, my belly was prominent. Amidst the clumsiness, I only seemed comical, invoking hearty laughter from the crowd. The old woman ordered her servants to hold me firmly and began to curse at me with disdain. "Such a shameless wretch! What's there to hide? Are you trying to say that only he, Xiao Zhan Tian, is worthy of seeing your body and the rest of us don't deserve to? Assuming that you're still his favorite woman, what a pitiful illusion. He has long since discarded you." My sensitive spots were touched, and I remained silent while tears fell. For the past 3 years, I've walked on thin ice, flattering and ingratiating myself. He had trained me to be his most exceptional concubine. There were times when he treated me with a certain warmth and affection. Gradually, I started to accept my fate, willing to be the woman he kept, and even developed feelings that shouldn't be there for him. Half a year ago, the imperial physician diagnosed that I was pregnant. Given that he had no sons, I thought he would treasure this child, but instead, he discarded me as if I were an old shoe. He believed I had swapped his contraceptive soup, intending to use the child in my belly to control him. He sent me back to Lin's mansion, stating that he wanted to educate me to remind me of my place. They were convinced that I had incurred Xiao Zhan Tian's displeasure and completely lost favor. They were exceptionally harsh to me. Any minor misstep of mine would result in severe beatings until I was bruised and battered. Even my meals were taken away. You can't even handle such trivial matters, and you still want to eat? You're really both lazy and disgraceful. Initially, I wasn't afraid. I assumed that since I was carrying Xiao Zhan Tian's child, even if he was annoyed with me momentarily, he would ultimately take me back because of the child. After all, over these years by his side, I was the one who received the most favor. Even his personal servants remarked that they had never seen him so enamored with a woman, and that my fortune would come later. Yet every time I muster the strength to fight back, I yell at them, "The prince will take me and my child back. You spineless servants who flatter the high and step on the low will meet a miserable end." But they seem to have heard the joke of the century. They not only show no signs of restraint, but even aim a kick at my belly. What a joke. If the child you carry is truly from the Lord Regent, how could he have driven you away? Surely your watery courting has landed you with a bastard child. Otherwise, why would the prince have repeatedly instructed us to teach you a lesson? Perhaps the prince, knowing we vented his anger for him, will even reward us. Moreover, you're nothing more than a worn-out, played woman now. Would the prince really take you back and wear the green hat? My voice was instantly muted, with tears freely flowing. That's right. If he really cares about me, how could he drive me away after knowing I'm pregnant? I'm now even lower than the brothel whores. How could I go back? From beginning to end, I was just a plaything. The old woman looked at my naked body with satisfaction, a false mercy on her face. Oh, Light Moon, don't blame your mother-in-law. It's already a great mercy that I let you live after you brought a bastard into my Lin house. I stubbornly lifted my head, my heart full of resentment. It was you who manipulated me for all the riches and glory. Now you think I'm dirty. Mother-in-law, don't forget, it's all because of my disgraceful body that everyone in the Lin family can live in peace. When my husband died in battle, the Lin household was on the brink of collapse. In order to seek the regent's protection, the mother-in-law asked me to give myself to him. Although I am not from a grand household, I know the principle of one woman, one husband. So I adamantly refused, but she used a bowl of psychedelic soup to send me to Xiao Zhan Tian's bed. She lives a carefree and respectful life, but now she dares to consider me dirty. The mother-in-law's gaze was fierce, her palms landing on me hard enough that I could not speak. You talk nonsense. It was you who willingly seduced the regent initially. Our Lin family has always been loyal to the nation. How could we be considered opportunistic flatterers? I took you in out of pity and forgot your past wrongs, but now I see you are nothing but an ungrateful wretch, daring to slander me. Today, I will let you experience the severity of the Lin family rules. The mother-in-law gave a signal, and two maids came forth, their eyes maliciously locked onto my abdomen. What are you standing there for? Beat her bastard child she's so fond of, then we'll see if she dares to be cheeky again. My eyes widened in shock. I was shouting, "Stop," in a nebulously way. One of the maids was holding a pair of scissors, about to jab me, when she was forcefully stopped by a hand. It was Leng Feng, the servant of Xiao Zhan Tian. After recognizing his purpose, the maid put her hand back resentfully and took him to the front hall to rest. Miss Li isn't presentable at the moment, and it's impolite to meet guests. Wait till I help her to dress up properly, then accompany you back. I heaved a sigh of relief. Thankfully, the child was safe. The mother-in-law ordered me to be taken back to the woodhouse. Like a beggar on the street, clothes were thrown at me. As I grit my teeth and put on the clothes, the door was kicked open by two servants. They moved closer with their lips licking greedily, moving closer to me. So this is the woman the regent can't forget. As this is the last time, let's, brothers, enjoy ourselves. Yes, indeed, such tender and soft skin, even though she's pregnant. It has its own charm. Such a shame. We can't play with her anymore after this. I was pushed onto the pile of firewood, my eyes blankly staring at the patchy ceiling, numbly awaiting their deeds to be done. Such situations had occurred countless times. With the old woman's tacit approval, the servants in the mansion could freely come and go from the storeroom. Who knows how much time had passed? The old woman pushed the door and entered, yanking the man on top of me away. Enough is enough. Lord Wang's close associate, Mr. Cold Maple, is still waiting. The man left with a satisfied grin, buckling his belt and remembering to give me a harsh squeeze before he stood up. The old woman helped me to move towards the front hall. The moment I stepped out of the storeroom, the old woman's menacing and sharp voice echoed from behind. Hurry up, but let me give you a friendly reminder. Don't say what you shouldn't. After all, if this incident gets out, it's you who will be humiliated. I lowered my head and obediently responded. How could I speak out about such a humiliating ordeal? By the time I arrived at the front hall, Cold Maple had been waiting for a long time. I quickly knelt down to pay respects, but he propped me up, looking at me incredulously. Miss, you are cherished by the prince. How could you kneel to his subordinate? I just found it funny. I had never been in Xiao Zhan Tian's heart. How could we even speak of being cherished? I was merely his plaything, summoned and dismissed at will, now reduced to less than the lowest of serfs. Moreover, during this half-year in Lin's mansion, I had been properly disciplined to be obedient, having to kneel and pay respects to everyone I saw. If I were a step slower, I would be greeted by a stick. Looking at you now, you are more obedient than before. I presume you have learnt your manners well these days. Do you realize your mistake? Xiao Zhan Tian's voice came, revealing neither happiness nor anger, yet inside, I felt a tumultuous storm brewing. I never expected that he would come to pick me up. Perhaps he just wanted to see for himself how disheveled I had become. During this time away from him, he kept appearing in my dreams, at first sweetly, but then I'd wake up breaking out in a cold sweat. The day the royal physician confirmed I was pregnant, I found it difficult to contain my joy. I originally thought Xiao Zhan Tian would feel the same as me, but I could never imagine that, in the next moment, Xiao Zhan Tian's expression would change abruptly, slapping me on the ground. Dan Yue, how dare you scheme against me? I thought you were different, but you're just like those other women, cunning and manipulative. You used all your tricks to get pregnant with my child. So what? I will teach you a good lesson. I want you to remember, don't become domineering because of favoritism. Each time this happens, I would wake up from my dream, bathed in sweat, and unable to calm myself for a long time. Ever since I followed him, there has never been a break from the contraceptive soup after each encounter, simply because Xiao Zhan Tian mentioned that the imperial family attaches the utmost importance to offspring, and the concubines should not be pregnant before the main wife. Therefore, when the royal physician mentioned that I was pregnant, I was overjoyed. What I didn't expect was that this unexpected little life seemed to cause him such rage. He even concluded that I was cunning and had secretly replaced the contraceptive soup to scheme for his favor. I can't forget the disgust in his eyes when he looked at me. Now that I've become so filthy and lowly, he probably wants me to die immediately. As usual, he reached out his hand to me, but instinctively, I backed away and then fell heavily on my knees. My forehead banged against the ground hard, making a dull sound. I have seen your highness, and I understand my mistakes. From this day forth, I will behave properly, but I beg for your mercy. Please spare my worthless life. Everything was silent for a long while, before I finally heard a chuckle from Xiao Zhan Tian overhead. Old Madame Lin sure knows her ways. Looking at you now, one would actually believe you have learned your lessons. Prior to this, I've never seen you so obedient before. As he spoke, Xiao Zhan Tian raised my chin gently with his hand. The moment his eyes fell on my face, there seemed to be a fleeting daze in his eyes. Dan Yue, how did you become so thin? Xiao Zhan Tian's tone was filled with shock, confusion, and even a little bit of sympathy. I lowered my head, refusing to meet his gaze. When he saw that I wasn't speaking, he didn't get angry, but mumbled to himself, "You are used to living a luxurious life in the royal palace. It's only natural that you couldn't adjust to life at the Lin residence." I concealed the bitterness in my heart and followed him back to the palace on a sedan chair. Xiao Zhan Tian led me to meet the queen. His queen, Lu Shewei, was renowned for her virtuousness and generosity, being the daughter of the current prime minister. At that moment, she sat beside Xiao Tian, smiling at me. But when her gaze shifted to my swollen belly, there was a flash of barely perceptible ruthlessness in her eyes. She could deceive others with this image of hers, but she could never fool me. For the past 3 years, I have obediently been taking the contraceptive soup, handed to me by Leng Feng, who always ensured that I drank it. On one occasion, it was delivered by someone sent by Lu Shewei. She has always been kind and gentle in the manner, so I had never suspected her. Thinking back now, she must have secretly replaced my contraceptive soup, causing me to provoke Xiao Zhan Tian's ire and lose my favor in his eyes. I kneeled down in a hurry to pay my respects, but Willow Snow was quick to assist me back up, taking my hand with utmost concern. "Little sister Dan Yue, you look so haggard. I have been advising the prince to allow you and your mother to come back, yet he acts like a child and holds grudges against you, causing you to suffer so much. However, you've indeed acted a bit absurdly this time. The prince despises a woman who schemes for their children's sake. Even if you were desperate, you shouldn't have tricked him into your manipulation. The prince cherishes you. Having children is an eventual matter." Willow Snow gently shook her head, seemingly caring for me wholeheartedly, yet subtly reminding Xiao Zhan Tian that I am a woman with profound intrigues. Before she could finish her spiel, she was interrupted by a glance from Xiao Zhan Tian. "That's enough. Let's not mention the past anymore. Once Dan Yue successfully gives birth, I have decided to ask for imperial permission to make her a concubine. Dan Yue, you just need to focus on your pregnancy. Every provision will be given according to the concubine's standards. He appeared quite pleased, as if bestowing upon me a magnificent gift. True, were it in the past, I might have even shed tears of gratitude. Yet now these favors bore no meaning to me. All I want is to give birth to the child and then leave him. I hastily shook my head. I dare not. Xiao Zhan Tian slightly furrowed his brows, seemingly a bit impatient. It's good to know your place, but you don't need to act anymore. I still prefer the way you used to be. I was stunned. He actually believes that all my obedience was contrived. Speaking of the past, I too loved the way I used to be. A pity, though, she was murdered by him. He took 3 quick steps and was by my side in no time. As his hand reached out to steady me, I reacted involuntarily, recoiling swiftly and losing my balance. I ended up landing on my butt. In haste, I rectified myself and began to plea, "I beg your mercy, my lord. It was the genuine reaction of my body. After spending half a year in Lin Mansion, I deeply despised the touch of men." Xiao Zhan Tian heaved a sigh of disappointment, casually waved his hand and said, "Forget it." Then he ordered people to take me back to my room for rest. To display her grace as the princess consort, Lu Shuiwei arranged a banquet to welcome me the next day. The banquet was attended by all the concubines and consorts of the mansion. Surprisingly, Xiao Zhantian accompanied them as well. During the feast, Lu Shuiwei got up with her wine cup in hand and advanced towards me. "How fortunate you are, Sister Dan Yue. You are blessed to bear the first son of the prince. We are all envious of you. May you and your child stay safe, and may it be a boy." While raising her wine cup to me, she gave me a harsh shove. Caught off guard, I lost my footing and went tumbling down the steps behind me. Lu Shuiwei's frantic voice echoed nearby. "My lord, it wasn't me. It was Dan Yue herself." Then I found myself in a familiar embrace and saw confusion in Xiao Zhantian's eyes. "Dan Yue, why would you risk your own and your child's life to plot against the princess?" Suddenly, there was a bitterness in my mouth. He did not hesitate to believe Lu Shuiwei over such a trite trick. Perhaps, in his eyes, I am, and always will be, a calculating, venomous woman. A sharp pain in my belly came rushing, a tightening sensation in my lower body, and I completely lost consciousness, closing my eyes tightly. In my daze, I felt someone putting me on the bed, his breath short as if he was about to lose his most precious treasure. "Dan Yue, you must be okay. This prince will not let you be in trouble." Such a gentle voice. Was it really from Xiao Zhan Tian? How could it be? He clearly thinks of me as a malicious woman who would put herself in danger to frame the queen. In a drowsy state, I would sleep for a while and then wake up. Sporadic fragments of a conversation between Xiao Zhan Tian and the imperial doctor drifted to my ears. "Your Highness, the lady's body is too weak, and it seems that there are some remnants of the love potion in her system. Coupled with her fall down the stairs, she lost her child. I am afraid." Dan Yue has been well cared for by this prince over the years and has always been in robust health. She has not even had a cold. How can she be so weak? Moreover, she was almost due. The stairs were not that high. How could she lose the child so easily? Xiao Zhan Tian couldn't believe it. "And you said about love potion. What do you mean? How could a pregnant woman come into contact with this sort of drug?" The imperial doctor looked puzzled. "Your Highness, you don't know. People in pregnancy are naturally fragile, but to be as depleted as the lady, I assume, she wasn't treated well during her pregnancy. Maybe she didn't have enough food and clothing, hence the unborn child's health was unstable, and that's why. As for the love potion, it's even more. I, as your humble servant, shouldn't speak this much, but even as a respected family, for a lady with such a special identity, if sent back to Lin's family while pregnant, one can hardly dare to imagine the kind of hardships and humiliations she would face." Suddenly, Xiao Zhan Tian seemed to realize something. A trace of panic flashed in his eyes. After the doctor left, he sat alone by my bed for a long time. Then, in a low voice, "Let the old lady from the Lin family come over. This prince has something to ask her." I felt as though I had been sleeping for a very, very long time, and once again, I had that dream. It was the first time I saw Xiao Zhantian. He was leaning against my side, with his hand propping up his head, his deep eyes filled with amusement. I had just recovered from the intoxicating power of the love potion. My face turned red instantaneously upon meeting his gaze. I kept shrinking into my quilt, but was tightly held by his large hand around my waist. "Weren't you quite bold just now when you were clinging to me? Now you're shy?" His teasing words made me blush in anger. A pure woman like me had to spend my wedding night with another man. The more I thought about it, the more wronged I felt. Immediately, my lips puckered and tears started to flow. Xiao Zhan Tian seemed to have never seen a woman crying so desperately. He was scrambling to comfort me, but my crying intensified. In the end, Xiao Zhan Tian had no choice but to surrender and patiently coaxed me. All right, all right, you are the first woman to feel so aggrieved in my bed. The Lin Mansion really sent me an ancestor, and I have to personally appease her." Later, he was worried that I alone would find it hard to adapt to life in the royal palace, so he always kept me by his side. On the bed, he patiently guided me. Gradually, I learned the essence of it. For a moment, I became the woman that everyone in the capital envied, the favored concubine beside the regent. Sometimes I did entertain the thought, if only he truly were my husband, how wonderful it would be. Eventually, I found myself expecting, yet Xiao Zhantian's entire demeanor altered, cast me off to the Lin clan as if I were nothing more than garbage. It was then that I woke up to the harsh reality. Despite all his favor, it was never love. I was nothing more than a disposable item to him. I wept and begged him not to treat me so savagely, yet he left cold-heartedly. I chased after him without heed, only to be forcefully get held back. Turning around, I found the person who was restraining me to be a servant from my own household. He was wearing a sinister expression as he started to rip off my clothes. Behind him, men lined up, eager to experience the favored consort of the regent. I contemplated ending my own life multiple times, but for the sake of the unborn child, I only bore the torment in silence. Resigned in my despair, I accepted my fate. My life, it seemed, was in ruins. I woke up from a nightmare, my body drenched in sweat. "Dan Yue, it's okay. I am here," he said. He was gently stroking my back, somewhat panicked and unsure. That's when I saw, by the bedside, Xiao Zhan Tian. I recoiled defensively to the corner of the bed, but he gripped my arm firmly, pulling me without a question into his embrace. Xiao Zhan Tian broke the silence in a low voice. "Dan Yue, I know you've been suffering these past few days. It was my oversight that caused you to put up with such grievances." I froze. Wasn't his intention to watch me suffer all this while? Now, who exactly was he putting on this regrettable act for? Without his special instructions, even if the Lin family were given 100 times their courage, they would never dare to lay a finger on the woman belonging to Xiao Zhantian. Now, by simply attributing his actions to oversight, he's trying to wash his hands clean of my suffering in one fell swoop. How convenient. Furthermore, just yesterday, he believed that I intentionally tripped and placed the blame on Lu Shuiwei. Now, what kind of saint is he trying to play? I subconsciously placed a hand on my flat belly, a sinking feeling in my heart. Xiao Zhanchen hurriedly consoled. "Dan Yue, my child, there will still be others. Don't be sad. Even you, regardless of your contempt for the queen, shouldn't stake your child in your own body. Your actions are truly willful. However, the queen is also at fault for not holding on to you in time. On her behalf, I apologize to you." His gaze was somewhat appeasing, causing a cold chuckle to escape my heart. "I lost my child, but he still insists Lu Shuiwei is innocent, while I bear the bitter fruit I've produced through manipulation. Indeed, I am merely a plaything, while Lu Shuiwei is his proper queen by marriage." Observing my sorrowful state, Xiao Zhan Tian gently kissed my forehead. "Dan Yue, I will make it up to you in the future." I closed my eyes tightly, refusing to look at him any longer. I refuse to accept his repentance and compensation. I will personally reclaim everything that I've lost. Before I could make a move, Lu Shuiwei was the first to become restless. Xiao Zhantian had gone to the palace early in the morning to seek permission to bestow me the title of concubine, a development that filled her with an unprecedented sense of crisis. After all, I was originally just an insignificant concubine, yet she had already secretly plotted against me. When I first returned to the mansion, she took another gamble and eliminated my child in front of a large crowd. Now, Xiao Zhan Tian is hastily proposing my promotion to concubine to make amends, understandably causing her sleepless nights. She came to my room under the premise of a visit, bringing along a few other concubines. They were eager to demonstrate their loyalty to Liu Shuiwei, and they would not miss any opportunity to make me suffer. Dan Yue is still just a modest girl from a humble family. Looking coarse but healthy, it seems like she has recovered well. Ultimately, it's Dan Yue's thin luck. What's the use of going to great lengths to conceive before the queen? It ended up being like fetching water with a bamboo basket, empty and a wasted effort. Unwilling to waste my energy arguing with them, I sat emotionless on the bed, staring directly at Liu Shuiwei. Liu Shuiwei didn't bother disguising herself anymore and curled her lips. Why is the little sister looking at me like that? Are you blaming your sister? It's all my fault. I was too harsh and even caused you to lose the baby direct. I clenched my teeth, so it was you. Liu Shuiwei didn't refute and candidly accepted. Exactly. But this child was originally given to you by me. Now that I have personally taken it away, it's only natural. However, I had no idea that the prince was so furious that he sent you directly back to the Lin household. Speaking of the Lin household, those men have already devoured you whole, and still you return with the prince? So it seems there really is some ill-fated relationship between you and the prince. Do you know that your husband was summoned to fight due to the prince's schemes? The prince's initial intention was just to oppress the third prince's faction. Little did he expect to encounter such a troublemaker like you. He was so love-stricken that he took the Lin family under his protection. I stiffened, my face turning pale. It turns out that I could have lived peacefully with my husband, but because of him, I became a widow on my wedding day. Now he even has the audacity to ask me to be his princess. Xiao Zhan Tian, you've caused me so much pain. I looked despaired while Liu Shuiwei laughed smugly. The other concubines watching whispered, while covering their mouth, considering how Sister Dan Yue has the prince so smitten, she must have special skills in bed. Why don't we ask her for some advice? Those seduction techniques can't be learned elsewhere. Liu Shuiwei chuckled lightly. Is that so? She took step by step closer to me, reaching out to tear open my clothes. I glared at her throat and secretly grasped the sharp hairpin hidden in my sleeve. At this moment, she was defenseless, and if I were to thrust it. Just when I was preparing to attack, I heard a rush of footsteps. A sinister smirk crossed my lips, and I quickly raised the hairpin, stabbing into my own chest. Liu Shuiwei and every concubine in the room were horrified by my move and screamed while retreating. Clutching my painful wound, I slowly collapsed onto the bed, staining the sheet with my blood. A panting Xiao Zhan Tian rushed over, holding me. Dan Yue. I turned my head, looking plaintively at Liu Shuiwei. Your Highness, do you hate me that much? Was it not enough that you schemed to make me conceive the prince's child? Now you want me to follow the fate of that child? Xiao Zhan Tian flinched at these words, becoming enveloped in a chilling aura as he fought to suppress his rage. Liu Shuiwei quickly defended herself. Your Highness, it has nothing to do with me. I didn't do anything. It was Dan Yue who. For the first time, Xiao Zhan Tian publicly rebuked Liu Shuiwei. Every time something happens, you blame Dan Yue. She just miscarried. She's physically weak. Do you really think she would risk her life for a joke? The queen's behavior is unacceptable. She's to stay in seclusion for a month to reflect on her actions. Even though I heard Xiao Zhan Tian's disbelief in Liu Shuiwei's explanation and felt somewhat relieved, the punishment of seclusion can hardly appease the hatred in my heart. That's okay. I have plenty of time to settle my score with them. I intentionally hurt myself. However, I would never harm a vital part of myself. Despite my actions appearing dangerous, the strike narrowly missed my heart. All this was merely a way to use Xiao Zhan Tian to take revenge on Liu Shuiwei. She deceived me more than once or twice. Now I'm merely returning the favor. Though my status is low, I won't allow them to treat me like this. In the days following, while I was bedridden, aside from attending court, Xiao Zhan Tian was constantly beside me in my chamber. When I fully recovered, Xiao Zhan Tian finally let out a sigh of relief. Since Dan Yue is safe and sound, lift the confinements on the queen and others. They bullied me to the extent of endangering my life, and he just let them off easily. I was taken aback at first, but in the next instant, I couldn't help mocking myself. What exactly was I expecting? Yue is his queen. Him chiding her for my sake is already unprecedented. How could he bear to let Liu Shuiwei suffer even the slightest? I understand everything, yet I can't control my tears. Seeing my sorrowful tears, Xiao Zhan Tian gently touched my hair. Dan Yue, don't torment yourself like this. The princess didn't do it intentionally. I turned my head away, ignoring him. He grew a bit anxious. Why don't you try to be as magnanimous as the princess? Don't be so sensitive. It seems the rules of the Lin house have been taught in vain. I laughed. In this case, may I ask Prince not to come to Dan Yue's room anymore? In the days that followed, I didn't say a single word to Xiao Zhan Tian. He was not at all discouraged, still coming to keep me company every day after court. On the 10th day, I finally spoke. He leaned over to me with bright eyes. For a while, I felt dizzy. It was as if I had gone back in time to when his eyes were filled with me. Prince, I would like to go to the Lingyun temple outside the city to become a nun and cleanse myself of sin. Before I could finish, deep furrows formed on Xiao Zhantian's brow. Dan Yue, are you going to push your luck with your prince's favor for you, forcing me to deal with the princess to make you happy? I thought that after what you've been through at the Lin house, you'd have learned your lesson, learned a lot of truths, and would be more obedient from now on. I never thought that you would be so cunning. Looking at Xiao Zhantian's disgusted expression, he was exactly the same as when he sent me back to the Lin house. So high and mighty, it was laughable. Liu Shuiwei, that wicked woman, killed my child. How can she expect me to forgive her so easily? If I was truly as scheming as they perceived, would I have ended up in such a tragic state? In the end, Xiao Zhantian did not grant my request. He merely set up a Buddha's shrine in my courtyard for my peace and seclusion. For the first time, he humbly pleaded with me, Dan Yue, please remain by my side obediently. Whatever you want, I will agree to. All I could do was respond with silence. He wanted to give me everything, yet ironically, the only thing I desired was freedom. Nothing else. Some time passed, and somehow, rumors of my romantic adventures had spread throughout the main streets and back alleys of the capital. It began with a few servants, who exaggerated their stories at the corners of the streets, claiming to have tasted the favor of the Regent King's favored concubine. My heart tightened, and I found myself in a state of confusion. So the secret was finally out. With a group of maids in tow, Liu Shuiwei stormed into my room and took me into custody under the pretense of maintaining the discipline of the courtyard. Li Dan Yue, you're so shameless. During your stay in Lin Mansion, you were seen to be involved with other men. Now your scandal is widely known. Even if the prince has a soft spot for you, he can't disregard public opinion. Liu Shuiwei preached with a serious face, with people around her echoing, yes, we've heard rumors. It's said that when Miss Dan Yue was in Lin Mansion, there were often men coming out of her room, sometimes more than one. I remained silent, but Xiao Zhantian's expression became increasingly grim. Liu Shuiwei signaled a maid standing behind her. The maid came towards me with a basin of water and accidentally spilled it on my collar when she was close. Seeing this, Liu Shuiwei immediately approached, using the excuse of wiping me up while purposefully tugging at my clothes, revealing the bruises on my chest that had yet to fade. She frowned and said coldly, Li Dan Yue, how are you going to explain these bruised marks to the prince? Immediately, all eyes were on me. People's whispers filled the air, all seemingly understanding the situation. Xiao Zhan Tian, unable to restrain himself, stood up in rage, commanding for the maid to be taken away for punishment. He removed his cloak and covered my exposed skin, dispersing the crowd. A bitter look flashed across Liu Shuiwei's eyes as she departed with a flick of her sleeve. Xiao Zhantian personally changed my clothes, pulling me onto his lap and muttered words of comfort. Dan Yue, pay no mind to the idle gossip outside. I will take care of this. I believe in your innocence. In the short time you've spent in Lin Mansion, I've done a lot of thinking. I sincerely love you. You're indeed special to me. I love you. The emperor has already agreed to grant an edict to make you my consort. let's start afresh, okay? I can't believe my ears. I never expected Xiao Zhan Tian to say something like this to me. If this were before, I would be jumping for joy. Regrettably, I've become a withered flower, no longer parting in the game of love. Somewhere along the way, I find myself teary-eyed. My lord, if you knew what I had gone through these past months, you wouldn't be saying these things. Xiao Zhan Tian reached out, gently wiping away my tears. It's ultimately my fault, making you do all these dirty and tiring tasks and endure such harsh treatment. I will slowly make it up to you. I pushed away his hand, pulled aside my thin clothing to reveal my body covered in complex purple bruises and bite marks. A bitter smile tugged at my lips as I gazed at him. My lord, how can a withered flower like me become your consort? The rumors aren't purely baseless. I really have been defiled. As his gaze landed on my body, he was dumbstruck for a long while, murmuring disbelief. No, it's not possible. You're my woman. How dare they? I softly chuckled. Those men were just following orders. What wouldn't they dare? So, my lord, do you still want me as I am now? That day, Xiao Zhan Tian practically fled from my chamber, his soul seemingly disembodied during his departure. I am completely indifferent to his reaction. After all I have suffered is because of him. Now he is feigning deep affection in front of me, which only makes me loathe him more. Such belated affection, not even a dog would want. The servants occasionally inform me of Xiao Zhantian's actions, saying that recently his tyranny has intensified. He arbitrarily ordered the extermination of the Lin family, not even sparing the servant boys at the gate. Among them, a few were even killed by him personally. As the maids recounted their names, I kept track in my heart. These were the ones who often visited my room. After a long while, Xiao Zhantian once again entered my room. The regent, who held sway over the world, kneeled at my feet, his eyes red, choking as he said, Dan Yue, it's over. Those who bullied you, I've dealt with them all. No one will dare to bully you anymore. Would you please forgive me? As soon as the words fell, he threw an old woman who was bound tightly behind him at my feet. She was covered in wounds, gasping her last breath. I crouched down and got close to her. She struggled to beg for mercy. Dan Yue, the old lady knows she was wrong. Please be merciful and ask the prince to spare me. I was just following orders. I unholstered the sword from a guard's waist, the cold gleam of the blade making her shiver uncontrollably. A fishy liquid flowed uncontrollably from between her legs. Following orders? Whose orders did you follow? Who ordered you to ruin my innocence? Spill the truth, and I might spare your miserable life. The old woman was already on the verge of her wits' end. After only a few words from me, she confessed. It's the princess consort. Having gained the information I wanted, I executed her on the spot. Xiao Zhantian knew all about Lu Suiwei's schemes, though he never expressed any objections in front of me, not even a word of reprimand. I'd long given up hope on him. Why would he defend me, causing trouble for his virtuous wife? All I could do was take my revenge in my own way. Seeing me silent and compliant, Xiao Zhantian felt even more guilty. Apart from attending court, he barely let me out of his sight. Despite the opposition of others, he procured an imperial edict for me and promoted me to a position to rival Lu Suiwei. Sometimes when looking at his affectionate face, I would feel a little dazed. If only the mishaps at the Lin residence hadn't happened and my innocent child was still alive, he and I could have been a perfect match. However, something once broken can never be restored completely, and I could never experience the same affection for him as I used to. The graciousness I show him is all for the sake of revenge. With the affection and protection of Xiao Zhantian, I frequented his study, eventually gathering mountain of evidence against Prime Minister Liu. Bribery, the persecution of loyal officials, even plotting rebellion. During a royal feast, I had a chance to meet the third prince. I managed to make sure he picked up the silk pouch filled with all the evidence. The third prince and Xiao Zhantian's party were sworn enemies, and recently their battle in the court had been heating up. I would often see Xiao Zhantian with a worried look on his face. Sure enough, the third prince did not disappoint me. The next day, he presented all these evidences of the crimes before the emperor. The emperor was furious and ordered a thorough investigation. The allegations made by the third prince were verified to be true, and a plethora of old cases were also unearthed in the process. The Liu family could not escape the fate of being exterminated. Liu Xuewei also got implicated. The emperor stripped her of her queen's position and confined her to the most remote courtyard of the prince's mansion. On the day I was made the official queen, I personally went to visit her. The sounds of a man's heavy breathing and a woman's crying were resounding incessantly in her room. Needless to say, I knew very well what she was experiencing inside. When the servants saw me coming, they hastily drove the man away and brought the disheveled Liu Shuiwei in front of me. Having just endured a torment, she was trembling on her knees like a frightened bird. After hearing my voice, she slowly lifted her head, which looked nothing like before. She pleaded for forgiveness without maintaining any dignity. "Your Highness, please show mercy and spare me." "I can't take it anymore." I interrupted her with a cold laugh. "Liu Shuiwei, you can't take this? The days are still long. All of this is thanks to you. Have you ever thought about this day when you commanded the Lin family to tarnish my innocence and plotted to kill my child? Repent well here and now." I turn my back and walk away. Her current plight is of her own making. Without the assistance of the Liu family, Xiao Zhan Tian's influence has taken a massive hit. I've become the only mistress of the royal mansion, doing my absolute best for him. Every day he takes the nourishing soup I painstakingly brew for him, and day by day his health declines. Guilty and wishing to make amends, he doesn't suspect me at all this year. Of course, he has no idea about the excessive cinnabar I've added to the soup. At his last gasp, I stand in front of his bed, impeccably dressed, looking down at him coldly as he struggles to hold on to life. He reaches out to hold my hand, but I ruthlessly brush him off. He looks hurt. "Dan Yue, why?" I disgustingly take a cloth to wipe my hand that he just touched, replying coldly, "Xiao Zhan Tian, your pretentious display of affection really disgusts me. If it weren't for you, I could have shared a loving, lifelong relationship with my husband. Why would I have given myself to you, subjecting myself to the pointed fingers and endless suffering, to the point of being scorned as a promiscuous woman? Don't you know, I've long stopped loving you. Every touch from you makes me feel repulsed. Also, how does the soup brewed with cinnabar taste?" He makes a feeble attempt, pointing at me. "Dan Yue, you hate me this much. You're ruthless enough to want me dead? All right, in the end, I owe you this." With a heavy plop, his hand falls to the ground. He lies motionless, devoid of life. I turn around, allowing tears to streak down my face. By now, all those who have harmed me have received their punishment, and in the silence of a deep night, I set a huge palace ablaze. However, the pain I once suffered still torments me in my midnight dreams. I left the place that filled me with despair and bought a small courtyard in the south. The misty rain of the Jiangnan region will eventually soothe the turbulence of my past life. The end. The end.